Hey folks, welcome to Quantum Mind Hub Stories. Before we dive into this story, we would love to hear all your comments, perspectives, and lessons learned down in the comments section. Please don't forget to like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy stories full of twists and turns. Now let's dive into the story. On a sunny morning that seemed too bright for the kind of turmoil brewing inside her home, Monica found herself pacing the living room. She felt like she was walking on eggshells because Darren, her husband, had been in one of his silent moods all week. He used to be a caring partner, or so she believed, but the person he'd become felt like a distant stranger. She was waiting for him to come down from the upstairs study, anxious about the conversation they needed to have regarding her budding interest in a wellness business. Every time she mentioned her dream of launching her own herbal tea brand, Darren would either shrug or roll his eyes, saying it wasn't real work. She wanted so badly for him to understand her passion. She discovered the magic of natural ingredients after a personal health scare and dreamed of helping others find balance and relief. But Darren wouldn't hear her out. He preferred her to stay at home, relying on his money. That morning, Monica tried to look confident, but her heart was pounding. As soon as Darren appeared, she took a breath and said, "I've been talking to a supplier online, and I think this wellness idea could really help people." Darren stared, letting out an annoyed sigh. "Why can't you just focus on what's important here?" he snapped, eyes narrowed. He gestured around their house, his voice dripping with impatience. "You've already got everything you need. My money keeps this place running. Why risk it all?" In that moment, Monica knew things were about to change forever. From the outside, Monica and Darren seemed like a picture-perfect couple. They lived in a spacious suburban home with a neatly kept lawn, and Darren drove a fancy car that caught everyone's attention. But beneath that shiny surface, cracks were widening every day. Darren had grown increasingly arrogant, relishing the praise he received from coworkers and neighbors. He loved throwing lavish parties to show off his status, while Monica stood in the background, feeling more like a prop than a partner. There was a time when Darren used to bring her flowers, make her breakfast in bed, and joke about how lucky he was to have her. But now he acted like her presence was an inconvenience. He took care of the finances with tight control, giving her an allowance as if she were a child. Whenever she asked questions about their savings or wanted to spend money on something small, he'd roll his eyes or laugh it off, leaving her feeling powerless. Monica tried to talk things out, but Darren would dismiss her with remarks like, "You're too sensitive," or, "Why do you care so much? It's just money." She was tired of being treated like a clueless bystander. Every day, she grew more uneasy, sensing that her role in the marriage was shrinking. She clung to memories of the good times, but those moments felt like ancient history now. Friends would comment on how lucky she was to live so comfortably, but she knew deep down that no amount of money could fix the loneliness she felt. As Darren's pride ballooned, Monica felt her own self-worth deflating. She wanted to break free, but she wasn't quite ready for that yet. She held on to hope that maybe, just maybe, things would turn around. The dream Monica once held close wasn't just about creating a wellness brand. It was about building a family too. She and Darren had once imagined a house filled with laughter and maybe a little chaos from children running around. But as the years passed, that dream started to slip away. Eventually, Monica got pregnant, and for a brief moment, it felt like everything might finally fall into place. She decorated a small room with pastel colors and filled a tiny dresser with baby clothes. She sensed that once a child arrived, Darren might soften up and show the kindness she fell in love with. But fate had other plans. Monica's miscarriage hit her like a ton of bricks. The heartbreak was crushing, and she felt like she was spiraling, trying to make sense of the loss. She needed Darren more than ever, hoping he'd hold her hand and grieve with her. Instead, he seemed annoyed by her tears. He'd say things like, "We can always try again," or worse, "We shouldn't dwell on what's gone." There was no genuine comfort, no warmth, just an impatient man who acted as if her sorrow was messing with his peace. In that raw and vulnerable period, Monica realized something was deeply wrong. A loving husband would have wrapped her in his arms, not brushed her off like a nuisance. She started to feel like a burden in her own home, suffocated by unspoken pain. The entire time, Darren barely acknowledged their loss. He even canceled a couple therapy appointments she'd scheduled, calling it a waste of money. That was the moment her heart began to truly break. She couldn't believe that a man she once trusted with her life would be so cold when she needed him most. It was a wake-up call that refused to be ignored. One evening, after a particularly heated argument about everything from money to how she spent her time, Darren finally snapped. His voice boomed through the house. "I can't keep dealing with your drama," he shouted, eyes filled with contempt. Monica had never seen him look at her that way, as if she were the cause of every problem in his life. She tried to stay calm, but her hands were shaking. She tried to reason with him, insisting they could work things out if they both put in the effort. But Darren wouldn't listen. Then came the words she never thought she'd hear from her own husband. "Pack your stuff and get out. I'm done." Felt like a punch in the gut. She stood there, tears blurring her vision, her mind racing to understand how everything had gone so terribly wrong. Darren repeated himself, this time more quietly but with a finality that made her heart pound. "Go," he said, as if dismissing a servant. In disbelief, Monica went to their bedroom and grabbed a small suitcase. She filled it with random clothes, not even sure what she was doing. A part of her still hoped Darren would come to his senses, but he didn't. Instead, he stared at her from the doorway, arms crossed, radiating anger. That look told her everything. There was no going back. Feeling more humiliated than ever, she walked out the front door with just that suitcase in hand. The driveway felt longer than a marathon, and when she reached the sidewalk, she allowed herself a shaky breath. She looked back, half hoping Darren would appear, maybe apologize. But the door stayed closed. It was then she truly understood. He'd tossed her out like trash, and she had to survive on her own. In the days that followed, Monica moved in with an old friend, Lisa, who lived in a tiny apartment across town. Lisa's couch was lumpy and the living room cramped, but it was better than sleeping on the street. Monica felt overwhelmed by a mixture of relief and utter despair. Part of her was thankful to have a roof over her head, while another part kept cycling through the shock of her sudden homelessness. Lisa tried to be comforting. One night, she placed a hot cup of tea in front of Monica and said gently, "You're safe here. I know it's not perfect, but we'll figure this out together." Monica tried to smile, but every muscle in her face felt too heavy. She didn't just lose her house, she lost her sense of security, her routine, and the belief that her marriage could be saved. She had no money in her bank account because Darren always managed everything. Now she had to rely on Lisa for basic necessities. During the lonely nights on that couch, Monica would stare at the ceiling, her mind replaying the last few years. How did she let herself become so dependent on him? She'd hush her tears so she wouldn't wake Lisa. She'd wonder if she'd done something wrong, if this was her fault somehow. But as the days crawled on, something else began to stir inside her, a flicker of determination. She thought, "I can't live like this forever. I won't be defined by the way he threw me out." At rock bottom, she discovered she still had a spark left, a small but powerful will to rise above the humiliation. She wasn't sure how or when, but she promised herself she would find a way to build a life on her own terms. Late one night, as she scrolled through her phone, Monica stumbled on an online course discussing how to start a small business with minimal funds. It was like a faint light in a dark tunnel. She remembered her passion for wellness and herbal remedies. Her mind buzzed with ideas for a brand she had once dreamed about. Earth Glow, a line of natural teas and supplements meant to heal and uplift people going through tough times. Though she felt nervous, she also sensed a small flutter of excitement. She signed up for the course right then, her heart pounding as she typed in her details. In the morning, she told Lisa, "I found something that might help. Maybe I can turn my love for wellness into an actual income." Lisa, ever supportive, grinned widely and said, "Girl, do it. You've got nothing to lose now." Monica threw herself into learning. She took notes feverishly, stayed up late to watch tutorials, and even started designing a simple logo on free graphic software. There were moments when self-doubt came creeping in, whispering that she wasn't business-savvy enough. But she pushed those thoughts aside. She told herself, "I've already lost almost everything. I can't just give up." Little by little, she felt hope creeping back into her life. Darren's harsh words still haunted her, but they also propelled her forward. It was almost like she was determined to prove to herself, and maybe to him too, that she was capable of more than anyone had given her credit for. Each time she clicked on another lesson or wrote down a new strategy, it felt like a piece of her old broken heart was being stitched back together. She was far from stable, but at least she was moving forward. Over the next few weeks, Monica juggled small freelance jobs to gather some initial funds for her venture. She did odd tasks online, like data entry and article writing, anything to scrape together extra cash. It wasn't glamorous, but it helped her purchase basic ingredients and experiment with recipes. Lisa's kitchen became her lab, cluttered with tea leaves, dried herbs, and dozens of test blends in mismatched jars. At first, her attempts fell flat. She'd brew a batch, expecting a soothing aroma, but often ended up with something bitter or flavorless. Still, she refused to quit. She'd try one recipe after another, adjusting the proportions of chamomile, lemongrass, ginger, or lavender. Gradually, she got better at recognizing which blends worked and which didn't. With each small victory, like finding a perfect blend that tasted both earthy and comforting, her confidence grew. She began brainstorming packaging ideas, though she couldn't afford professional help just yet. Monica also read up on marketing tips. She created an Instagram handle and named it Earthglow Official, posting pictures of her test blends alongside motivational quotes. She had only a few followers at first, mostly friends, but she believed in the potential of what she was doing. Whenever self-doubt resurfaced, she remembered Darren rolling his eyes and telling her she was chasing a pipe dream. That memory fueled her determination, reminding her that if she didn't push forward, she'd be proving him right. Meanwhile, living on Lisa's couch was tough. The lack of privacy and the constant noise of the city made her miss her old life sometimes. But she also realized that for the first time in a long while, she had something truly hers. A dream she was shaping with her own hands. She knew she was planting seeds that might eventually grow into something bigger than she ever imagined. Monica quickly discovered the importance of community when she noticed a handful of strangers on Instagram showing genuine interest in her products. One day, she got a direct message from a local mom who was struggling with insomnia and anxiety. The mom asked for advice on the best herbal blend to ease her restless nights. Monica sent her a sample of a chamomile lavender mixture and was delighted when the mom raved about how it helped her sleep better. Then that same mom told her friends who told their friends, and before Monica knew it, her inbox filled up with inquiries. The orders were small at first, just 1 or 2 bags, but every sale felt like a personal victory. Each time someone sent her a thank you, "This really helped," Monica felt a rush of happiness she hadn't felt in a long time. She realized that her business wasn't just about making money, but about connecting with people who needed comfort and relief, much like she once did. Her friend Lisa, seeing the growing interest, suggested they set up a small pop-up stall at a local weekend market. Monica hesitated, worried about the costs and whether people would actually buy from her in person. But after a few days, she decided it was worth a shot. She scraped together enough to pay for a table fee, packed up her tea blends, and showed up at the market, heart pounding. To her amazement, people stopped by, curious about the handmade labels and the soothing scents. She explained her story in brief, smiling when their eyes lit up at the idea of a small business run by someone so passionate. By the end of the day, she'd sold out her stock. It wasn't a fortune, but it felt like a significant step forward. It reminded her she wasn't alone in this journey. Every small milestone became a celebration for Monica. When she received her first 5-star review online, she practically did a happy dance. She called Lisa over to the couch-turned office and read the comment aloud. "Earthglow's teas are like a warm hug on a stressful day. Love supporting a local startup." That short, sweet review meant more to her than any applause she'd heard in her old life. It validated the countless hours she'd put into learning, testing, and packaging her teas. She started to gain a little traction. The pop-up events became a regular weekend gig. She'd wake up at dawn, brew fresh samples, and spend hours explaining the benefits of various herbal blends to curious customers. Each sale brought her closer to a dream she once thought was impossible. Social media began to show more interest, too, as pictures of her stall and teas circulated through local community groups. A small influencer known for reviewing local products even featured Earthglow in a short video clip. Meanwhile, Darren's life remained a distant backdrop. She'd catch occasional glimpses of him online, boasting about a new sports car or posting group pictures at fancy restaurants. It stung, but she refused to let it derail her progress. Instead, she focused on her tiny victories. She told herself that every new follower or satisfied customer was a reminder she was on the right path. By the time Earthglow turned a small profit, Monica felt a spark of the confidence she lost when Darren kicked her out. She was no longer just the wife who got thrown away like trash. She was a woman who was rebuilding her life, one tea bag at a time. And for the first time in a while, she looked in the mirror and felt proud of what she saw. Despite her forward momentum, old memories sometimes resurfaced like stubborn ghosts. Late at night, scrolling through social media, Monica would come across pictures of Darren grinning with new acquaintances. She'd wonder if his flashy lifestyle was still going strong or if he'd mellowed out. She hated how a single photo could make her heart ache with questions. One afternoon, she heard from a mutual friend that Darren had been bragging about a lucrative new business deal. Part of her felt a stab of old resentment. She was here, hustling for every dollar, while he seemed to be coasting on arrogance. She tried to shake it off, but the thoughts lingered. Why did she care? She told herself she shouldn't, that his life was no longer her concern. But the wounds hadn't fully healed. It was during one of these low moments that Lisa gently reminded her, "You're doing amazing. Don't let his shadow distract you from your own light." Monica nodded, tears in her eyes, wishing she could just erase every memory of Darren altogether. She confided, "It's like there's a part of me that wants him to see I've made it without him, just to prove he was wrong." Lisa wrapped an arm around her and said, "That's normal. But do this for you, not for him." So Monica kept her head down and pushed forward, focusing on her growing brand. She listed out new goals. Develop more flavors, partner with local retailers, maybe even hire help. The idea of truly letting go of Darren's hold on her life was easier said than done, but she was learning that healing wasn't a straight line. Sometimes it was 2 steps forward and 1 step back. She just had to keep moving forward, no matter what Darren was up to. Opportunity often shows up when least expected. One breezy morning, Monica was approached by a friendly distributor who had seen her stall at the weekend market. He ran a small distribution company specializing in local, organic brands. "Your teas are special," he remarked, sipping one of her samples. "There's a real soul behind them. I think we could help you expand." His words gave Monica goosebumps. She had always dreamed of Earthglow products reaching a wider audience, but the logistics and costs seemed terrifying. Over coffee, they discussed potential terms. He proposed placing Earthglow teas in a few boutique health stores around town. If they sold well, they could scale up. Monica was stunned. "Are you sure my little operation is ready for that?" she asked, voice trembling with excitement. The distributor flashed a confident smile. "I've got a good feeling about you. Sometimes you just know when a brand has heart." She felt a surge of optimism she hadn't experienced in years. Signing that initial contract felt like a turning point, even if it was small. She spent the next few days in a whirlwind, ordering more packaging supplies, updating labels, and perfecting her blends to meet higher demand. Lisa helped her pack boxes in the living room, both of them laughing at how they'd turned a tiny apartment into a makeshift warehouse. Between the chaos of sealing tea bags and printing shipping labels, Monica felt a glimmer of hope that she was truly beginning a new chapter. Darren's face popped into her mind from time to time, but it no longer dominated her thoughts. She had an opportunity that was completely her own. A chance to prove she could thrive without him. And with each box she packed, she felt 1 step closer to shedding the weight of her past. Throughout her whirlwind days, Monica never forgot the kindness that Lisa had shown by letting her crash on that old, lumpy couch. As Earthglow gained momentum, Monica began saving every spare dollar. One afternoon, she approached Lisa with a small envelope. Inside was a modest check, some of the profits from the recent surge in sales. Lisa's eyes went wide. "Monica, what's this?" she asked. Monica smiled. "It's a partial investment if you'll accept it. I can't keep letting you feed me on top of everything else. Plus, you believed in me when no one else did." Lisa's grin stretched from ear to ear. "Of course I accept it. And you know what? I'll put it right back into Earthglow. Let's take this to the next level together." Monica's heart. With gratitude. She never realized just how crucial real friendship could be until she'd lost almost everything else. With Lisa's small investment, they ordered better packaging, improved the brand's design, and even hired a freelance photographer to capture professional shots for the website. Monica poured her heart into each decision, determined to make Earthglow stand out. It wasn't just about money, it was about building something that represented hope and resilience. Late at night, the two friends would brainstorm new blends, sampling teas until their taste buds were numb. They'd laugh about the old days when Monica was too scared to even mention the idea of a business around Darren. Now, she was actively making decisions and charting her own course. Felt liberating beyond words. That sense of partnership and mutual support fueled Earthglow's growth, and Monica realized that having someone who truly believed in your dreams could be the difference between staying stuck in misery and finding a new path forward. With her newfound focus on self-growth, Monica hardly noticed when fate stepped in to introduce her to a new face. One evening, as she wrapped up a product drop-off at a local store, she bumped into Ethan, a friendly pilot who was picking up herbal teas for his mother. He wore a warm smile and a casual jacket with aviation patches. They struck up a conversation about the teas he'd just purchased. "My mom swears by herbal remedies," he chuckled. "She's always telling me how certain blends help her sleep better, especially when I'm away on flights." Monica felt an immediate connection, perhaps because Ethan's genuine interest reminded her that not everyone dismissed her passion as a silly hobby. They chatted for a while, swapping stories about travel, health, and life's unexpected turns. Eventually, Ethan asked if she'd like to grab a coffee sometime, and Monica hesitated. She hadn't let her guard down since Darren. She remembered the pain of that failed marriage, how quickly someone you trusted could tear you apart. But something about Ethan's sincerity made her agree. "Sure," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Their first coffee date felt almost surreal. She talked about Earthglow, about her dream to help people find natural ways to cope with stress. He listened without judgment, which was a breath of fresh air. There was no eye roll, no dismissive comment, just pure curiosity. When he spoke about flying, he lit up, describing the rush of takeoff and the peace he felt cruising above the clouds. After that evening, Monica found herself thinking about him more than she expected. The idea of love still scared her, but Ethan's kindness hinted that maybe a second chance at happiness wasn't out of the question. As Earthglow expanded, Monica found herself juggling more responsibilities than she ever thought possible. She was the product developer, the marketer, the accountant, all rolled into one. Distributor demands increased, which meant she had to speed up her production pace. Some days, she woke up before sunrise just to get a head start on blending and packaging orders, all while trying to keep her social media platforms updated. The stress felt overwhelming at times. She'd look at her rapidly growing to-do list and think, "Am I actually cut out for this?" Then, she'd remember how Darren always claimed she wasn't the ambitious type. Picturing his sneer gave her an odd burst of energy. She'd grit her teeth and say, "I'm doing this for me, and no one's going to stop me now." Still, there were nights she cried herself to sleep, worried she was biting off more than she could chew. Ethan remained in the picture, dropping by occasionally with a comforting smile and words of encouragement. Whenever she felt like she was drowning in orders, he'd swing by with takeout or offer to help her package teas. "Don't burn yourself out," he gently reminded her. "You can't help people if you're not taking care of yourself." She appreciated that he saw her exhaustion and genuinely wanted to lighten her load. Meanwhile, Lisa helped manage some of the bookkeeping, turning her living room into Earthglow's unofficial office. The place was a constant whirlwind of boxes, labels, and herbal scents. Even so, Monica would catch herself feeling oddly content in the chaos. It was her chaos, born from her vision, and that made all the difference. Every stressful moment was a step forward, a push toward proving she was far more capable than Darren, or even she herself had once believed. On the other side of town, Darren's life wasn't as rosy as his social media posts suggested. In truth, he'd overextended himself on flashy investments that brought short-term attention but long-term debt. He'd bought into risky ventures and boasted about them in front of his social circle. But behind closed doors, he was watching his finances bleed away. Worse yet, his second marriage, a whirlwind romance with a woman who loved the spotlight, was already on shaky ground. While Darren told the world he was living large, he often found himself staring at spreadsheets filled with red numbers. He tried to juggle the mounting debt by taking out more loans, but it only dug him deeper. Late at night, he'd pour himself a drink and wonder how everything had gone so wrong. Yet, he rarely admitted he was at fault. Blaming the economy or bad luck was easier than facing his own arrogance. His second wife, Chelsea, began to question his spending habits. "Are we really as wealthy as you say?" she'd ask, eyeing the sudden bills that came in. Darren would brush her off, claiming he had it all under control. But the facade was wearing thin, and he could tell Chelsea was getting restless. She was never one for quiet companionship. She thrived on the glitz and glam Darren once promised her. Now, those promises were slipping through his fingers like sand. Meanwhile, Darren occasionally thought of Monica, more in passing than out of genuine concern. He figured she'd probably found some menial job or gone crawling back to her family. He certainly didn't imagine her achieving anything remarkable. After all, he was the successful one, right? Little did he know, Monica was quietly building a life and a business that would one day eclipse his own fleeting sense of success. Back in Monica's world, success and personal growth were blooming. Earthglow received a glowing endorsement from a local wellness magazine, praising the brand's authentic commitment to holistic well-being. Sales spiked, and Monica found herself scrambling to keep up. It was a wild, exhilarating ride, with new customers emailing their praise every day. She'd even started hiring part-time help, something she never imagined doing just months earlier. Amid these high points, life's complexities continued to swirl around her. Ethan was becoming an important presence in her life, but she noticed herself pulling away whenever things felt too close. He'd give her that tender, questioning look and say, "It seems like you've got one foot out the door. What's going on?" She'd sigh and admit that she still carried the emotional scars from Darren. "I'm afraid of making the same mistakes," she confided one evening. Ethan would listen patiently, never pushing her faster than she was ready to go. Still, the tension was there. She felt a growing warmth toward Ethan that both comforted and scared her. Meanwhile, the business demands grew heavier. Larger stores wanted to stock Earthglow's teas, and she had to ensure product quality remained top-notch. She worried about letting her customers down, or worse, failing publicly and confirming Darren's belief that she wasn't good enough. Yet, each small triumph, whether it was a new store signing a contract or a heartfelt testimonial from a customer, proved that her fears, while valid, weren't the final word. She was creating something meaningful, something that stood for hope and self-healing. Even though her relationship with Ethan wasn't perfectly clear, the success of Earthglow reassured her that she was capable of more than she ever thought. She was no longer a woman defined by her past, but one writing her own story. One golden afternoon, with the sun dipping low in the sky, Ethan surprised Monica by picking her up for a drive. They ended up at a quiet lookout point where city lights twinkled below. Monica found it breathtaking. She'd been so busy she'd forgotten to appreciate simple beauty like this. As they talked about life and the future, Ethan suddenly turned to her with a serious expression. "Monica," he began softly, "I know you're still healing, and I respect that. But I want you to know I see a future with you. I love who you are, and I want to support Earthglow, but more importantly, I want to support you." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Opening it revealed a modest but elegant ring. "Will you marry me?" he asked, eyes filled with genuine hope. Monica's heart pounded so loud she was sure he could hear it. She felt a whirlwind of emotions, love, fear, gratitude, and lingering doubt all colliding in her chest. She looked into Ethan's eyes and saw sincerity, not the cold dismissal she once endured. But the memories of her toxic marriage with Darren hovered over her like a dark cloud. She hesitated, tears forming in her eyes. "Ethan, I'm terrified," she admitted. "I don't want to hurt you if I can't shake off my past." Ethan gently took her hand. "I understand," he said. "There's no rush. I just had to let you know I'm serious. Keep the ring. Think it over. Whatever you decide, I'll respect." In that moment, Monica realized just how different Ethan was. He offered patience instead of demands, compassion instead of ridicule. But still, her heart wrestled with the question. Was she ready to take that leap again? Around the same time, Monica felt another calling she couldn't ignore: motherhood. While volunteering at a local children's center, she became attached to a pair of adorable twin girls who had lost their parents. Their wide eyes and sweet smiles stole her heart completely. She found herself visiting them as often as she could, bringing little treats, reading them stories, and braiding their hair. Something about the twins awakened a deep maternal instinct that had been sleeping inside her ever since she lost her own pregnancy. One day, the social worker in charge pulled her aside. "These girls are special, and they need someone who truly cares. Would you ever consider adoption?" Monica felt a wave of emotion flood her. She'd always dreamed of being a mother, but the question was, could she handle it alone if she had to? She thought about Darren's reaction to her miscarriage and how little support she had then. It made her heart ache, but it also reminded her that love and family shouldn't be contingent on someone else's approval. She spoke to Ethan about the idea, half expecting him to run. Instead, he smiled and said, "If that's where your heart is, I'll stand by you, but I want you to be sure this is what you really want." Monica took time to ponder, weighing her business commitments and her emotional readiness. But every time she pictured the twins' faces, she felt a surge of warmth that erased her doubts. Eventually, she made up her mind. She wanted to be their mother. Marriage to Ethan was still uncertain, but her decision to adopt was crystal clear. She filled out the papers, shaking with a mixture of excitement and nerves, ready to open her heart in a way she never had before. The adoption process wasn't quick or easy, but Monica stuck with it, grateful that Ethan and Lisa were in her corner. As the months rolled on, Earthglow reached new heights. Retailers across the state started placing large orders, and a few distributors even hinted at international possibilities. Monica found herself juggling business calls at odd hours and traveling to meet new partners, all while completing the paperwork and home visits required for adoption. At times, she worried she might be taking on too much. Friends asked if she was certain she could balance a fast-growing brand and motherhood, especially as a single parent, if marriage wasn't on the table yet. But Monica had never been more sure. She felt like she was fulfilling two callings, one to provide natural wellness to others and another to offer a loving home to these orphan twins. She told Lisa, "I've got the strength to do this now. I'm not the same frightened woman who walked away from Darren." Ethan continued to be a supportive force, although the question of marriage hung in the air like a gentle reminder. One evening, he admitted he was ready whenever she was, but he also understood she needed to figure out her own path. With mutual respect, they decided not to rush. If marriage was meant to be, it would happen in its own time. When the day finally came and Monica signed the final adoption papers, she felt an indescribable joy. The first time she walked into her apartment with the twins holding her hands, it was like she was stepping into a new life, a life defined by love, purpose, and the realization that she could be whole again, no matter how badly someone else had tried to break her spirit. As Earthglow approached its 4th year, the brand's growth erupted like fireworks. Monica received a call from a large wellness retailer eager to stock her products in multiple locations across the country. Her hands shook with excitement when she signed that partnership agreement. Suddenly, she was no longer just a local success story. Earthglow was becoming a national name. She even landed a TV spot on a morning show where she demonstrated her calming tea blends and shared snippets of her life story. On social media, Earthglow's follower count soared, and customers from all walks of life began sharing testimonials about how these teas helped them manage stress, insomnia, and even heartbreak. Monica noticed a recurring theme in their messages: hope. Many mentioned how Earthglow reminded them that it's never too late to start over, which mirrored Monica's own journey. At home, the twins thrived under her care. Homework sessions, bedtime stories, and Saturday morning breakfasts became the heart of Monica's week. She found a rhythm between business meetings and parent-teacher conferences, grateful for Lisa's support and Ethan's gentle presence. Although he occasionally traveled for his pilot job, he always returned with gifts for the girls and a warm hug for Monica. Even with her increased workload, Monica tried to stay grounded. She kept a gratitude journal, something one of her wellness mentors had recommended. Each night, she'd list 3 things she was thankful for, reminding herself how far she'd come from those lonely, desperate nights on Lisa's couch. She still felt the occasional sting from her past, but it was overshadowed by the joy in her present. The woman who once felt kicked to the curb was now a well-respected entrepreneur and a devoted mother. And that was only the beginning of her remarkable comeback. While Monica's star rose, Darren's second marriage crumbled under financial strain and shattered trust. Chelsea discovered the extent of his shady deals and mounting debts, and she wanted no part of that chaos. "You promised me a life of luxury," she hissed one evening, waving a stack of unpaid bills in his face. "This isn't what I signed up for." Before Darren could spin another web of excuses, she'd packed her bags and slammed the door. Stunned, Darren found himself alone, drowning in legal fees and a business teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. His flashy car was repossessed, and his so-called friends disappeared the moment the money ran dry. He was left with a sinking realization that his arrogance had led him here. In a twist of irony, he thought about Monica more often now, wondering if she was struggling as much as he was, if she'd ever faced the same humiliation of losing it all. But Darren didn't know her life had taken a drastically different turn. He assumed she'd be bitter and defeated, maybe relying on family handouts or small-time jobs. A strange part of him wanted to see her again to prove something to himself. Maybe that he hadn't been the only one to fail. Yet he couldn't muster the courage to seek her out, not while his life was in tatters. He spent long nights contemplating his mistakes, nursing regret like an old wound that refused to heal. Without the constant buzz of parties and public validation, Darren was forced to confront the silence. It was deafening. The man who once stood tall and proud now felt hollow, unsure if he had the strength to rebuild. The thought that Monica might have found success, a notion he wouldn't dare say aloud, gnawed at him in quiet moments. Monica, meanwhile, remained largely unaware of Darren's troubles. She was busy planning the next phase of Earthglow, which included a potential deal to supply cruise ships and resorts. One day, she attended a high-profile networking event where various health and wellness brands gathered to discuss future collaborations. As she walked through the elegant venue, she caught a glimpse of a familiar face in the crowd. Her heart froze for a second. Was that Darren? She blinked, and the moment passed. The man had already turned away, leaving her uncertain if it was really him or a trick of her imagination. Shaking off her nerves, she continued mingling with potential business partners, telling herself that even if it was Darren, it shouldn't matter anymore. She was here as a respected entrepreneur now, not the frightened woman who once begged him to listen. As the event wrapped up, she felt a tug of curiosity. Part of her wanted to confirm whether Darren was really there, but she chose not to linger. Her twins were waiting at home, and so were a stack of papers requiring her signature for a new distribution deal. "I've got better things to focus on," she reminded herself. It turned out Darren had indeed been at the same event, only to leave early when he spotted Monica's name on the guest list. Feeling a mix of shame and regret, he couldn't bear to face her. He worried she'd see right through his polished front, noticing the panic in his eyes and the cracks in his once grand facade. Had they actually crossed paths, the resulting conversation might have changed everything. But fate, it seemed, had another plan in mind, and the two went their separate ways, both oblivious to the other's swirling emotions. At home, Monica's twins, Lily and Leah, were growing curious about the idea of a father figure. They saw other kids getting picked up by dads, laughing with them at school events. One evening, as Monica helped them with their homework, Lily looked up and asked, "Mommy, how come we don't have a dad?" Her question struck a chord in Monica's heart. She paused, trying to find the right words. She'd considered how to approach this topic, knowing it would come up eventually. She spoke gently, explaining that families come in all shapes and sizes. Some kids have one parent, some have two, some live with grandparents, and some are adopted. "We're a family because we love each other," she said, kissing their foreheads. Leah nodded thoughtfully. "So does that mean we might have a dad someday? Or is it always just us?" The twins' innocent questions made Monica reflect on her relationship with Ethan, which had remained in a comfortable, close friends with deeper feelings zone. She wondered if she was shortchanging herself and them by refusing to move forward because of her past trauma. Yet she also knew that adopting them on her own terms had been important to her healing. She wanted to ensure that marriage wasn't just a patch for old wounds, but a real, honest commitment. So she ushed the twins' hair back and said, "You know what? Anything could happen. But no matter what, we have each other. Okay?" They nodded, satisfied for now. Still, her conversation with them hung in her thoughts for days. It reminded her that the decisions she made now had a ripple effect on two young lives. If she ever decided to walk down the aisle again, it wouldn't just be her heart on the line. It'd be Lily's and Leah's too. Approaching the 10-year anniversary of Earthglow's humble beginnings, Monica felt both nostalgic and excited. She decided to celebrate in a big way, hosting an exclusive launch event for a new premium line of teas. However, instead of a typical hotel conference room, she arranged for something spectacular. A private jet runway event, where she could unveil her brand's global partnership with an elite airline that wanted to serve Earthglow teas in first-class cabins. It was a dream that underscored just how far she'd come. Planning the event took months. She coordinated with the airline, arranged for a spacious hangar, and organized press invites. She even sent out elegant, gold-embossed invitations to key influencers, retailers, and media outlets. The buzz around the event grew, and her social media lit up with excitement. On the personal front, the twins couldn't wait. "Are we gonna fly, Mommy?" Lily asked, eyes gleaming. Monica chuckled. Maybe not just yet, but we'll see. For her, the anniversary wasn't just a business milestone. It was a symbolic victory over the pain she once carried. She wanted the world to see that Earthglow stood for resilience, hope, and self-belief. During rehearsals for the grand launch, she caught herself thinking about Darren again. A decade had passed since he threw her out like trash, telling her she wasn't capable of much. Now, here she was, about to showcase her brand's success on a private jet runway. She felt a mixture of triumph and lingering sadness. She wondered if Darren even knew what she'd accomplished, or if he cared. But she pushed that thought aside. This night was about her journey, her twins, and the brand she built from ashes. She refused to let the shadow of her past dull the spotlight of her well-earned success. Meanwhile, Darren was scraping by as a chauffeur for high-end clients, a far cry from his days of flaunting wealth. It was the only job he could get that offered decent pay without requiring a stellar business record. Each night, he'd collapse into a modest studio apartment, far from the lavish home he once shared with Monica. His pride had taken a massive hit, and he was learning humility in the hardest way possible. Surprisingly, the chauffeuring job had its perks. He got to drive luxury cars, which reminded him of better days, though now he was just the driver, not the owner. He ferried VIPs from hotels to red carpet events, forced to remain silent while they reveled in the limelight he once believed he deserved. With each trip, he realized how fragile success could be if built on arrogance and shallow foundations. One night, he overheard a conversation between two passengers about an upcoming, exclusive private jet runway event. They raved about some wellness brand that had skyrocketed over the past decade. The name Earthglow floated in the air, and Darren felt a jolt of recognition. Could it be the same silly tea idea Monica once babbled about? No, that seemed impossible. But the thought wouldn't leave him. He felt a pang of curiosity, wondering if the brand had any connection to her. As he dropped those passengers off, Darren couldn't shake the sinking feeling that his past was catching up with him in a way he never anticipated. He tried to brush it off as a coincidence, but a small voice inside whispered that perhaps this was karma coming full circle. He couldn't imagine that the woman he'd discarded would be the one riding a wave of success he never believed she could achieve. On the day of the grand event, Darren was assigned to pick up a high-profile client who insisted on direct transport to a private airstrip. He was given specific instructions: drive onto the tarmac, wait by a sleek private jet, and assist his passenger with any luggage. Darren felt a twinge of anxiety. He'd never driven onto a runway before. But orders were orders. He arrived at the airstrip, passing security checks and marveling at the impressive jets lined up. The opulence of it all reminded him of the life he once tried to claim. The irony wasn't lost on him. He now served those he used to aspire to be. Clutching the wheel, he followed a staff member's directions and parked near the designated private jet. The engines roared in the background and a wave of heat from the runway shimmered in the air. Moments later, he saw the jet's door open. A small set of stairs descended, and out stepped a figure in a stylish outfit, flanked by two little girls. They looked about 7 or 8, bouncing with excitement. Darren's gaze traveled upward, and his heart nearly stopped. It was Monica. She looked poised, confident, and every bit the successful entrepreneur. He recognized her face instantly, though he could scarcely believe his eyes. And those twin girls, were they her daughters? Time seemed to freeze. Darren sat in the driver's seat, feeling his pulse throb in his temples. It dawned on him that this was Monica's jet, or at least one connected to her event. She was the high-profile client he'd been sent to fetch. His hands trembled on the steering wheel. The world blurred around him. After all these years, he'd never expected to see her like this. Glowing, with 2 bright-eyed daughters at her side, about to board a private jet for an event celebrating a brand he once dismissed as pointless. Monica stepped onto the tarmac with Lily and Leah greeting the ground staff who guided her toward a waiting car. She expected some event shuttle, but instead she saw a chauffeur in a crisp uniform holding the door open. As she approached, she froze. It took just one look at the driver's face to recognize Darren. She felt a rush of memories, hurt, anger, and a strange sense of triumph all at once. Darren, for his part, could barely speak. He managed a shaky, "Hello, Monica," his eyes flicking from her to the twins. Monica swallowed, feeling her stomach churn. She could see he was clearly not the self-assured man she remembered. There was a tightness around his eyes, a heaviness in his stance. For a heartbeat, she considered walking right past him without a word. But Lily squeezed her hand, sensing the tension. "Darren," Monica finally said, her voice surprisingly steady. She glanced at the car, then back at him, unsure how to handle this painfully awkward situation. The staff waited nearby, and cameras might still be rolling somewhere, capturing the event. She didn't want a scene. Without waiting for Darren to respond, she helped her daughter settle into the back seat. Then she slid in and closed the door herself, leaving Darren to walk around to the driver's side. As the car moved toward the hangar, silence hung heavy in the air. The twins, sensing the tension, stayed unusually quiet. Darren's hands gripped the wheel, knuckles white. He stole quick glances in the rearview mirror, but Monica stared straight ahead, heart pounding. She thought about all the nights she cried after he cast her aside and how she never expected to see him from this vantage point as her hired help. The irony was almost overwhelming. Once they reached the hangar where the main event was held, Darren parked carefully. Monica stepped out, taking a steadying breath. Before she could walk away, he cleared his throat, struggling to find words. "Monica," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry. I never thought. I didn't know." She turned to face him. In that moment, she saw a broken man who finally realized he'd lost something irreplaceable. She also saw how far she'd come. She was no longer the timid wife pleading for his approval. She was Monica, CEO of Earthglow, a mother of two, and a woman who built her own life from nothing. She felt pity for him, but not hatred. "I appreciate the apology," she said quietly, maintaining her composure. "But what's done is done. You made your choices, Darren, and I made mine." She motioned toward the twins, who stood a few steps away, taking in the bustling preparations for the event. "These are my daughters. I've built a good life for us. You should know that I'm grateful you pushed me to find my own path." Darren looked like he wanted to say more, maybe beg for forgiveness or even ask for help. But Monica gave him a polite nod, signaling the conversation was over. Then, with her chin held high, she took her daughter's hands and walked into the hangar, where reporters, guests, and business partners waited. Darren stood alone by the car, feeling the weight of regret settle like a stone in his chest. He watched her disappear into the crowd, realizing with stark clarity that he'd once dismissed the very person who now had everything he ever wanted. Inside the hangar, Monica was swept up in the flurry of her milestone event. Photographers snapped pictures, journalists asked questions, and the twins marveled at the sleek jet bearing Earthglow's logo. But even as she spoke on stage about her brand's journey, how it began as a small idea and grew into a global phenomenon, her mind drifted back to Darren for a moment. She wondered if he'd truly learned from his failures or if he'd slipped back into the cycle of denial. Either way, it wasn't her responsibility anymore. After her speech, a wave of relief and pride washed over her. She spotted Ethan in the crowd, having just flown in from another trip. He caught her eye, smiling that warm, genuine smile. She remembered the ring he'd offered, the life they could share if she chose. Maybe now she felt more prepared to embrace that future. She was no longer trapped by her past or afraid of repeating old mistakes. In a quiet moment, she stepped off the stage just as Lily and Leah ran up to her. "Mom, that was awesome," Lily exclaimed. Leah chimed in, "Everyone's talking about how cool your tea is." Monica laughed, hugging them close. She was overwhelmed by the blessings in her life, her children, her thriving business, and friends who stood by her side. While Darren lingered outside, likely battling a storm of regret, Monica found closure in her own way. She'd conquered the demons he left behind, turning heartbreak into empowerment. She'd also proven to herself that no matter how dark things got, there was always a chance for a fresh start. Standing there under the hangar lights, she felt complete, not because she'd gotten revenge, but because she'd finally found peace. In the days that followed, Monica reflected on the surreal encounter with Darren. She realized she didn't feel hatred toward him, only gratitude that his actions pushed her onto a path of self-discovery and genuine success. Earthglow's anniversary event was hailed as a triumph. Her inbox flooded with partnership inquiries and social media buzzed with excitement about her new travel-themed product line. At home, the twins were still giddy about all the jets and cameras. One afternoon, Leah asked if they'd ever see that driver again. Monica simply replied, "Probably not." As for Ethan, he sat down with Monica on a quiet evening, sipping tea on her balcony. He still had the ring, and she felt ready to talk about their future. In a tender conversation, she admitted that fear no longer held her back. She wanted to embrace love again, not out of desperation, but from a place of strength. When Ethan slipped the ring back onto her finger, the twins burst into applause and Lisa joined in, wiping away happy tears. For Monica, it was a moment that encapsulated everything, the pain she'd endured, the lessons she'd learned, and the bright future she was stepping into. She recognized that life had given her a second chance, and she intended to make the most of it. Before we wrap up, Monica wants to hear from you. What are your thoughts, your feelings, and the lessons you've picked up from her story? Drop your comments below, share this video with friends who might need a spark of hope, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that remind us that sometimes the hardest chapters of our lives lead to the most incredible new beginnings.